Shri B. Mahtab ji.
Honorable Chairman, sir, I stand here today to deliberate on the General Budget 2021, which is the first budget of the third decade of 21st century. इस हिसाब से I can only say the Finance Minister presented this budget amid high expectation of a demand stimulus for the economy. The slowdown in the economy combined with the existing fiscal stress made this a challenging task. Economists have said realistically that there was little scope for a big fiscal stimulus. She has tried to do her best under the given circumstances. Why she did not try to do more on policy and legislative changes that are not necessarily tax revenue and expenditure related, one may ask. But these can be done later as they are not part of the money bill. Before I delve into the nuances of this year's budget, I would like to know from the government whether any consensus has emerged on defining poverty line in the country. Governing Council of Niti Aayog had held a meeting on 8th February 2015 under the chairmanship of Honorable Prime Minister. A task force under the chairmanship of Dr. Arvind Panagaria submitted a report to Prime Minister on 11th July 2016. The term of reference of this task force included to develop a working definition of poverty, unquote. Regarding a situation of poverty, the report states, and I quote, a consensus in favor of either the Tendulkar or a higher poverty line did not emerge, unquote. It recommended to form an expert committee. You can understand a committee is recommending to form another expert committee to arrive at an informed decision on the level at which the poverty line should be set. We are told on 5th February this year that it is still under consideration to a question which was put up before this House to the government. And it has not been decided yet since 2016. The Economic Survey of 1920 has very candidly and even arguably pushed forward pro-market reforms. It has delved into India's own past. It has argued that India's civilizational ethos has celebrated wealth creators. And that is why it had allowed the country to be the dominant economic power globally for more than 3/4 of known economic history. Our 4-decade-long dalliance with socialism, the survey states, was an aberration from these norms. I may agree, I may not agree, many may agree, many may not agree. But what the economic survey has stated this year very candidly is this, that this 4 decades of long dalliance with socialism, the survey states, was an aberration from this norm. This is a nation which worships Goddess Lakshmi. The earnings is not supposed to be appropriated fully, but to be divided in 4. 1/4 to be kept as a savings, 1/4 to be spent on alms, 1/4, alms means alimony, 1/4 to be spent on alimony, 1/4 to be spent for the society, and the last quarter for his own expenses. Many of us today even practice this in our daily life. That is the reason why India's resilience was on the savings. And here I would like to mention, sir, coming to the budget, One may say there is focus on agriculture, on infrastructure, a boost to the corporate sector, tax cuts and disinvestment are positive steps. Slowing economy, falling aggregate demand, and poor credit flows and exports were all pointing to the need for a sharp fiscal stimulus. But fiscal space was limited. Yet several measures and initiatives have been taken to address these challenges and build them around the themes of, as it has been said in the budget, aspirational India, economic development, and caring society. Review of rules of origin norms under the FTAs and provisions against dumping are welcome steps. This budget indicates that the government is alive to a new set of environmental challenges confronting us. Sir, what is the state of economy today? That is read through key economic indicators: GDP, inflation, industrial production, balance of payments, and fiscal deficit. People say there is a slowdown. Some say it is structural, and to correct it, we need structural reforms. And some others say it is cyclical, for which one needs policy intervention. Since 2011-12, investment has been declining. And here I would like to mention, sir, since 1991, because there was a question today during the question hour, and the Honorable Minister of State Finance has given a written reply and also was replying, but I would like to keep it on record here. Outcome in this country has not been lowered, has not come down since 1991. We are measuring GDP growth, no doubt, but outcome has not come down as it had happened in the 60s and in the 70s. 3 times there was serious slump in outcome. And I would say in 1966, in 1973, and again in 1979. But after 1991, the outcome has never come down in this country, and that's the reason, the resilience of this country to stand up to different international slowdown or depression that is occurring. But here I would like to mention, sir, but the problem today in our country is, it is not the outcome or the GDP, it is the investment which is coming down in a rapid space. We have always made our comparison with the East Asian tigers, how they have improved themselves, how they have built up their economy. Their investment was on manufacturing, was on production. Our growth has to depend on investment. And that is the reason why there is always a comparison between us and also China, between us and also Indochine countries. So the more the investment is there in our country, the growth would be faster and quicker. As investment has slowed down, and here I would like to mention, sir, where investment is to come. In India, the investment was being done by respective public sector banks. And respective public sector banks are unable to do this investment in a greater way after 2011, because majority of the investment went towards infrastructure. From 2000, I would say, these are all on record, from 2000, the investment which was for MSME, for small traders, that was in a bigger way had come down, and it is still sliding down. This budget, I would expect adequate corrective measures is necessary so that the resilience is brought in through the banking, so that they can invest more on the MSME sector, on the small traders, so that they can actually bring the output, the growth will also occur. Since 2011-12, investment has been declining. In India, investment has been the main driver of growth, whereas in East Asia, it is the export which is the engine of growth. Till 2008 and 9, investment were more by the banks, public sector banks. Bond market did not do the investment in India. Small business thrive on bank finance, but if it is not,
ठीक है।
I think, Madam member from Maharashtra should have the patience to listen to me till the last.
I'm happy if you speak for 3 hours. So you should be nice to us even for 1 hour.
But it is not happening after 2000. In the last part of the first decade of this century, banks were investing in infrastructure projects. Today, banks are no longer in a position to lend to infrastructure, and they are not providing credit to small business also. This has led to the problem. Has this budget addressed this issue? I believe there is a need for financial sector reforms. There is a huge amount of NPAs. Willful defaulters are to be tackled sternly. Unless the MSME are revived, it will be tough to reverse the current economic slowdown and ensure growth in employment. There is a need to focus on banking sector to tackle slowdown. Unless banking sector is brought back to health, one cannot expect a reversal of the economic slowdown this year. The big borrowers are still able to borrow, but the MSMEs are being squeezed of loans for not being viable in the eyes of bankers. An interesting piece is there in the economic survey. In a strong critique of the performance of public sector banks, the survey says while 4.3 lakh crore of taxpayers' money has gone into public sector banks, every rupee invested has lost 23 paise as on 2019. Yet I would say government should not lose sight of wider reforms in public sector banks. Bankers today have been reluctant to take lending decisions. In the absence of reforms, public sector banks will remain vulnerable to frauds and fear of investigation despite safeguards put in place by the government. There is a need for wide reforms to build capacity in evaluating risks associated with lending. There is a need to get competition within banking sectors. Is there any competition today? None. An attempt was to bring in FRDI bill during last Loksabha. And I think I read it yesterday where the finance minister said that yes, we are considering of bringing in FRDI bill. I would say there is a talk of it now. There was some concerns, no doubt, but do not throw the baby with the bathwater. Sir, the budget estimates of the next fiscal year, to a large extent, depend on achieving the ambitious disinvestment target. You intend to raise a massive 2.1 trillion next year, compared with the raised estimate of 65,000 crores in this year. Government has budgeted 1.05 trillion in July 2019. However little, that was only 18,000 crores which has been managed to be raised. The government is planning to raise 90,000 crores by selling its stake in financial institutions like Life Insurance Corporation. People say there are reasons why this proposal is a good one. Apart from invoking value, it will not only allow investors, both retail and institutional, to own the largest insurance venture, but will also improve transparency and
मेहताब जी,
governance.
आपके दो और सदस्य बोलने के हैं।
हमारे पार्टी से
हाँ।
दो और I should stop now.
नहीं, यू कंक्लूड मेहताब जी, आप कंक्लूड कीजिए।
स्पीकर साहब